From the moment she married Prince Charles in 1981, Princess Diana became the people's princess and was beloved all over the world for her grace, style, and philanthropic efforts. Her popularity with the people could be seen not only when she was alive, but after news of her tragic passing broke on August 31st, 1997, when mourners congregated at Kensington and Buckingham Palace to pay tribute with flowers and cards. Diana passed away after sustaining injuries in a car crash in Paris. Diana's funeral, like her wedding, was televised around the world. Billions of people watched as Diana was laid to rest in a funeral procession that lasted for more than 3 hours. They also watched the heartbreaking scene of young Prince William and Prince Harry walking behind their mother's coffin in the procession with their dad, Prince Charles, and grandfather, Prince Philip. Another heart-wrenching moment that viewers remember is the sight of Diana's coffin, adorned with flowers and the Royal Standard flag draped over it. According to Express UK, 8 Welsh guards carried Diana's coffin, but they had trouble doing it because of how heavy it was. Since it was lined with lead, it reportedly weighed a quarter metric ton.
To be carried now, so gently and with infinite care.
Metro notes that it is tradition for British royals to be buried in lead-lined coffins because of its preservation abilities. Lead coffins are sealed airtight and can slow the body's decomposition while keeping out moisture and preserving the body for a longer period of time. Although Diana was no longer married to Prince Charles at the time of her death, she only had the title of Lady Diana Spencer. She was buried as a British royal because of how loved she was by the public. This was confirmed by a Buckingham Palace spokesperson who told BBC that the funeral contained particular elements that reflected, quote, the affection with which the princess was held. According to the Daily Mail, the Duke of Edinburgh will be laid to rest in a traditional English oak coffin that was commissioned many years ago along with the Queen's. It's also reported that his coffin, just like Diana's, will be lined in lead as well, in an effort to combat moisture and prevent the body from decomposing as quickly. The story goes that Prince Philip will be temporarily laid to rest in the royal vault until the time of the Queen's passing, when they will both be transported to Frogmore Gardens together. During an interview with The Times, the funeral director to the royal family, Andrew Leverton, explained that Philip's coffin wasn't simply something that could be ordered in a moment's notice. He said, "It is not something you can just make in a day or a few hours. It was felt that it was important to have it available." Leverton added that the English oak wood alone is now very difficult to get hold of. While Princess Diana and Prince Philip's coffins might be similar, the way in which Philip will be sent off will have one very big difference: no large crowds. According to the Daily Mail, the public has been forewarned to stay away from Windsor during the Duke's funeral due to concerns of COVID-19. John Story, the mayor of Windsor, told the PA news agency that it was a great honor for the Duke to be transported to the district, but cautioned, "It is a really serious message that everyone stays away. There will be nothing to see." Story also explained that Windsor already has a plan set in place for anyone planning to defy the orders. He said, "The officers on the day will take whatever operational decisions which are required." The mayor did, however, acknowledge the public's interest in offering their support and condolences while also reminding everyone about the importance of the public's health. He added, "It is a very difficult time for people, and people have very strong feelings, but we have to ask everyone to put theirs and the health and safety of others at the top of their list of priorities and not come into Windsor." The whole of the funeral, including the ceremonial procession, is taking place inside the castle walls.
When Princess Diana died in a horrific car crash in Paris in August 1997, Britain went into mourning. But the beloved royal's death has since unleashed many revelations about her and those she was closest to. These are the shocking things we learned about Princess Diana after her death. In 2004, NBC aired the first installment of their highly controversial 2-part documentary on the late Princess of Wales, which was released under the title Princess Diana: The Secret Tapes. The docu-series was comprised of footage taken at Princess Diana's Kensington Palace home between 1992 and 1993 by her friend Peter Settlin, whom the princess had decided to confide in. She spoke of many things in their recorded interview sessions, but the beloved royal began by telling her former voice coach that she suffered a great deal in childhood, stating, "It was a very unhappy childhood. My parents were busy sorting themselves out. I remember seeing my father slap my mother across the face and I was crying on the floor. Mummy was crying an awful lot." The BBC also got its hands on the tapes and reportedly plans to release its own documentary on the princess at the time, but bosses at the broadcasting company decided to axe it over fears it would upset her ex-husband, Prince Charles.
I don't think they should be broadcast. It's almost like raiding her diary.
Princess Diana's former royal protection officer, Ken Worf, became one of her closest confidants during his time by her side. Though after he left the role weeks before her tragic death in Paris, he decided to go ahead with his own personal memoirs in 2002. Diana, closely guarded secret, blew the lid on a number of stories that had previously been dismissed as nothing but rumours, the most sensational of all being Princess Diana's alleged affair with British Army officer James Hewitt.
In July 1986, Diana met James Hewitt at a party. She arranged for Hewitt to give her riding lessons, and more.
Worf would reportedly accompany the princess to her secret meetings with Hewitt, who she took as her lover after she discovered that her then-husband Prince Charles was seeing his then-mistress Camilla Parker Bowles again. In his book, Worf wrote, "Shattered by her husband's betrayal, the princess was ready for an affair. Hewitt, a natural womanizer, gave her the attention and affection she relished, and then the passion she yearned for." In his memoir, Diana, Closely Guarded Secret, Ken Worf made it perfectly clear what he thought of ladies' man James Hewitt, recalling the first time he took Princess Diana to meet him at his mother's isolated cottage in the Devon countryside, which he referred to as the couple's love nest. Hewitt reportedly came out to greet them with an over-enthusiastic welcome, though Diana's bodyguard found his over-the-top behaviour laughable, recalling, "It seemed absurd and confirmed my preconceived ideas. Not all army officers were public school buffoons, but many seemed to be doing an excellent impersonation." That enthusiasm would eventually wane, however, and Hewitt later decided to confide in Worf when the secretive relationship became too much for him to handle. He said to Worf, "Ken, I need some time off. The princess can be so demanding." His chance for a break came when he was promoted to Major and took a 2-year posting in Germany, reportedly leaving Diana heartbroken and threatening to approach his commanding officer. According to Worf, Hewitt was aghast. To say the household cavalry would have frowned on any officer cockholding the future king is a massive understatement. He's probably not wrong. Relationship pressure was something that Princess Diana was all too familiar with, having suffered from its side effects long before she even walked down the aisle with the Prince of Wales. Diana developed an eating disorder early on in her relationship with Charles, whose reported flippant comments about her weight started a chain of events that would affect his wife and marriage for years to come. In her recorded remarks, Diana recounted these events, stating, "Bulimia started the week after we got engaged. Charles said, 'You're getting a bit chubby,' and that triggered something off. The first time I made myself sick, I was so thrilled. It relieved me of tension." She went on to reveal that she was making herself throw up her food multiple times a day, but it all came to a head when she fainted during an event in Canada.
They all blamed the failure of the marriage on the bulimia, and that's taken some time to get them to think differently.
The press referred to it as, quote, "the wedding of the century," after thousands upon thousands packed the streets of London to celebrate the new princess. The one person who didn't get swept up in the fairy tale royal wedding day, though, was Princess Diana herself. After getting cold feet, she revealed in those secret tapes that she'd confided in her sisters, "I said, I can't marry him, I can't do this. This is absolutely unbelievable." And they were wonderful and said, "Well, bad luck, Dutch. Your face is on the tea towel now, so you're too late to chicken out." It was later revealed that Prince Charles reportedly shared similar doubts about their compatibility. However, the royal couple made their way to the world-famous St. Paul's Cathedral, where 750 million people watched Diana walk down the aisle. While the bride was a vision of royal beauty, inside, the princess-to-be felt like, as she put it, a, quote, "lamb to the slaughter." Diana later recounted, "My wedding day. I think that was the worst day of my life." As the 90s reached their midway point, it started becoming clear that this royal marriage had faced major trouble in paradise, the extent of which wasn't fully known until Princess Diana's secret tapes were released. Not only was the princess severely depressed about the state of her failing marriage, at times her relationship with Prince Charles caused her to try and take her own life. She said of the period,
I was so depressed and I was trying to cut my wrist with razor blades.
Queen Elizabeth II even witnessed one of Diana's attempts firsthand during her pregnancy with Prince William following an argument with Charles. Diana stated, "I was crying my eyes out. He said I was crying wolf. I'm not going to listen, he said. You're always doing this to me. I'm going riding now." So I threw myself down the stairs. The Queen comes out, absolutely horrified, shaking. She was so frightened. When he came back, it was just dismissal, total dismissal. He just carried on out of the door. If you or anyone you know is having suicidal thoughts, please call or chat online with the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK. That's 1-800-273-8255. According to unnamed sources who spoke with the Daily Mail, the revelations inside Ken Worf's memoirs have made him a sworn enemy to the royal family. In fact, the establishment sought to strip him of his royal honours in the wake of his explosive book. Perhaps one of the most shocking chapters, considering how Princess Diana met her eventual fate, claimed that the princess would encourage her protector to exceed the speed limit while driving her home from the Hewitt family cottage. This speeding almost landed them in a huge PR disaster. As Worf put it, after these clandestine meetings, Diana would be exhilarated. She often insisted on driving much too fast, which is how we came to be stopped by a patrol car when we'd been doing around 100 miles per hour. "Ken, you'll have to sort this out," said the princess as we pulled over, but I told her firmly that it wasn't my job to cover up offences, particularly as I had warned her repeatedly about her speed. Diana reportedly took it upon herself to resolve the situation, using her status and good looks to influence the policeman. Worf recalled that the traffic officer got the shock of his life when he realised who he'd stopped. Diana, with her eyes at their most doe-like and her head tilted to one side, was let off with a polite reprimand. Through no fault of his own, Prince Harry's birth caused his mother heartache, as Ken Worf found out firsthand. Princess Diana's biggest regret about her affair with James Hewitt was that it brought the legitimacy of her second son into question, with many assuming that the child was not Prince Charles's doing when he popped out with a fiery head of red hair, remarkably similar in colour to Hewitt's. Charles certainly noticed.
First comment was, "Oh God, it's a boy." Second comment, "Oh, and he's even got red hair."
Despite being generally thick-skinned when it came to the media, the rumours about Harry reportedly drove Princess Diana to tears on many occasions, meaning Worf avoided the topic like the plague where possible. The one time he did discuss the stories with the princess, she supposedly told him that it was nothing but a malicious lie, stating, "I don't know how my husband and I did have Harry, because by then he had gone back to his lady, but one thing that is certain is that we did." While Worf is no longer on the Windsor Christmas card list, he has always backed the princess up on this one, claiming that it is, quote, mathematically wrong for Hewitt to be the father, as he didn't meet Diana until 1986, 2 years after Harry was born. After her divorce from Prince Charles was finalised in 1996, Princess Diana reportedly became convinced that there was a plot afoot to have her killed. During the inquest into her death, her lawyer, Lord Mission, testified that the princess had heard from, quote, reliable sources that she would be killed in a staged accident. It later transpired that those sources were a series of mediums, psychics, and astrologists, one of whom reportedly told Diana about a premonition she had in which she saw the brakes of a black Mercedes being tampered with, adding that she, quote, felt a connection with France. The paranoid princess reportedly went as far as writing a letter to friend Simone Simmons, a holistic healer by trade. Diana claimed, quote, the brakes of my car have been tampered with, following a minor fender bender she had in London. A mechanic later confirmed it was simply down to normal wear and tear, though Sally Morgan, Diana's most trusted psychic, still maintains there was something fishy about her death. According to Morgan, the truth will come out. Diana would definitely want the facts to be revealed. She'd be torn between it all being dragged up again and upsetting her boys, but William and Harry are men now, so they can handle it. I think they want the truth too, but I think it'll be 200 years before it comes out. It'll be Prince George's grandchildren who'll allow the truth to be printed. Princess Diana is said to have clashed with Princess Michael of Kent, the wife of Queen Elizabeth II's cousin, Prince Michael of Kent, on numerous occasions. The people that knew her best claim Diana often took issue with Princess Michael's rigid approach to royal life. According to Ken Worf, the free-spirited princess had a less than flattering nickname for her stuffy elder. According to Worf, Diana used to refer to her as the U-boat commander. It was really common knowledge. The two princesses were once neighbours at Kensington Palace. They would act friendly toward one another whenever they crossed paths, but Worf testified, quote, "It was all a bit of a facade." And Worf wasn't the only royal insider to come forward about this unspoken feud. Diana's former personal trainer claimed she used to enjoy embarrassing Princess Michael by greeting her while wearing skimpy gym outfits. According to Carol Ann Brown, Diana had a huge sense of humour. She hated any kind of stuffiness, and she thought Princess Michael liked to be very regal. In 2005, Princess Michael's true feelings on Diana came out in a scandalous fashion. The unwitting princess told notorious undercover journalist Mazhar Fake Sheikh Mahmoud that Diana was, quote, "nasty and bitter" in a recorded sting. Princess Michael also claimed that the People's Princess was just a, quote, "womb" for Charles. Ouch. Life as a royal might seem like a fairy tale, but it's becoming more and more clear that this isn't really the case. Events such as the dramatic split between the royal family and Prince Harry and Meghan Markle have suggested that things aren't always so rosy for the royals, but they're not the first to have struggled with the weight of their public roles. Take Princess Diana, for example. Prince William and Harry's mother famously endured a very public divorce with her husband Prince Charles, was constantly hounded by the British press, and died tragically in Paris in 1997. But things weren't always rough for Diana, especially her relationship with her husband. Things started off well enough. Lady Diana Spencer and Prince Charles married on July 29, 1981 at St Paul's Cathedral, officially making Diana the Princess of Wales. The day was a joyful one for Diana, who said in her biography, "I remember being so in love with my husband that I couldn't take my eyes off him." The young princess added, "I just absolutely thought I was the luckiest girl in the world. He was going to look after me." Well, was I wrong on that assumption? But trouble began brewing even on their honeymoon, where they took off for a 14-day cruise aboard the royal yacht Britannia. According to Diana's biography, Charles wore a gift from his former girlfriend Camilla Parker Bowles, cufflinks with intertwined C's for their names.
Well, there were three of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded.
Despite this rocky start, Charles and Diana went on to conceive their first child, and in June 1982, Prince William was born. While William grew to be happy and healthy, Diana's second pregnancy ended in a miscarriage in September 1983. Thankfully, the palace announced in February 1984 that Diana was pregnant again, and the baby was due in mid-September. But while this birth brought Diana much joy, it also spurred Charles into making a joke that hurt her to her core. The truth is, Prince Harry's birth came as kind of a disappointment to Prince Charles. Prince Charles had desperately wanted a daughter after the birth of their first child, William. Princess Diana knew that she was expecting a boy during the pregnancy, but kept it a secret from Charles because he was so adamant about having a daughter. So when Harry was safely delivered after a 9-hour delivery, he was given his full name, Henry Charles Albert David Mountbatten Windsor. According to Andrew Morton's book, Diana, Her True Story in Her Own Words, the first thing Charles said when he saw his son was, "Oh God, it's a boy, and he's even got red hair." According to Morton's book, Diana later told friends that when she heard Charles's reaction, something inside her died. Charles's comment about Harry's red hair was deeply hurtful to Diana, especially because her older sisters and her younger brother had red hair, so it was clearly a trait that ran in the Spencer family. Morton added that this statement by Charles marked the beginning of the end of their marriage. Prince Charles never really stopped expressing his disappointment at the birth of his second son either. Later, at Harry's christening, Charles said to Princess Diana's mother, "We were so disappointed. We thought it would be a girl." Diana later spoke about this time, saying that the weeks leading up to Harry's birth were the closest she and Charles had ever been. Once Harry was born, however, their relationship changed forever. Diana herself wrote, "Then suddenly, as Harry was born, it just went bang, our marriage. The whole thing went down the drain." Their marriage ultimately proved unsuccessful, and British Prime Minister John Major announced their divorce in December 1992. Then, in August 1997, Diana tragically died in a car accident, solidifying herself in the minds of the British public as the so-called People's Princess. Suddenly, the narrative had changed, and people came to see Diana as someone who was pushed out of the royal family because she did things differently. As she said in her famous 1995 BBC interview with Martin Bashir, "I do things differently because I don't go by a rule book, because I lead from the heart, not the head. And albeit that's got me into trouble in my work, I understand that. But someone's got to go out there and love people and show it." The marriage of Prince Charles and the late Diana of Wales might have looked like a fairy tale at first, but there was no happily ever after for these royals. From mutual infidelity to pressure from the rest of the royal family, let's look at why the couple couldn't make their palace a happy home. No love lost. When it comes to royal relationships, love isn't always a necessary ingredient for a marital arrangement. Diana was of royal lineage thanks to her status as a Spencer, and Charles needed to marry to make more heirs to the throne. So their relationship may have been built on convenience and duty rather than real romance. The pair had only met a dozen times before announcing their engagement, and what an awkward event that was.
I'm amazed that she's been brave enough to take me on.
And I suppose in love.
Of course.
If it wasn't already clear that their affection for one another wasn't quite developed, Charles made that very clear when he said,
Whatever in love means.
Diana would later admit that the reason she and Charles felt the need to get engaged was pressure from the outside.
So you're being what, pushed by family?
Yeah, my family looked great, and so did my friends, and so did Charles's family.
Suffering in silence. Even if they weren't burning with passion for one another on their wedding day, Prince Charles and Lady Diana did get married before going on to have 2 sons together, William and Harry. But Princess Di suffered from the experience of becoming a mother at first and had to keep her bout with postpartum depression quiet. She later said, "I was unwell with postnatal depression, which no one ever discusses. You wake up in the morning feeling you didn't want to get out of bed, you felt misunderstood, and just very, very low in yourself. It gave everybody a wonderful new label. Diana's unstable and Diana's mentally unbalanced. And unfortunately, that seems to have stuck on and off over the years." Diana revealed that her depression led to self-harm, cutting her arms and legs in an effort to rid herself of the emotional pain. She said people see it as crying wolf or attention-seeking, and they think because you're in the media all the time that you've got enough attention. But I was actually crying out because I wanted to get better in order to go forward and continue my duty and role as wife, mother, Princess of Wales. She also suffered from bulimia as a result of her discontent at home, and that may have been encouraged by her husband's treatment of her as well. Diana's biographer, Andrew Morton, told People, "I think she slimmed before the wedding as a result of nerves, and then the whole thing was triggered during her honeymoon when her husband put his arms around her and said, 'You are a bit chubby, darling.'" Media pressures. Even the strongest of relationships might buckle under the weight of scrutiny Charles and Diana experienced during their marriage. As the future of Buckingham Palace, the two were constantly pursued by the media, and Diana lamented the loss of privacy. She later attributed some of their unhappiness to the endless attention, saying, "My husband and I, we were told when we got engaged that the media would go quietly, and it didn't. And then when we were married, they said it would go quietly, and it didn't. And then it started to focus very much on me, and I seem to be on the front of a newspaper every single day, which is an isolating experience." She went on to add that much of the scrutiny was placed on her shoulders in particular, and that she had a hard time living beneath such an intense spotlight, saying, "It was difficult to share that load because I was the one who was always pitched out front, whether it was my clothes, what I said, what my hair was doing, everything, when actually what we wanted to be, what we wanted supported, was our work." She would later attempt to retreat from the spotlight by pleading with the press.
"To understand and to give me the time and space that has been lacking in recent years."
However, the media never relented, even to her dying day. Breaking faith. Prince Charles no longer has to hide his relationship with now-wife Camilla Parker Bowles. But when they first struck up a romance, he was still very much married to Diana, even if it was just a technicality for both of them. He told the New York Times that he had been faithful to Diana until it became irretrievably broken down, us both having tried. One of the most damaging royal scandals emerged when an illegally obtained phone recording between Charles and Parker Bowles revealed their explicit phone conversations, at least one of which Diana overheard.
Well, there were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded.
Diana later revealed that when she confronted Charles about his continued romance with Parker Bowles, he said simply, "Well, I refuse to be the only Prince of Wales who never had a mistress." However, Charles wasn't the only one who stepped out during the course of their union. Diana also became intimate with her bodyguard, Barry Nicki, during their marriage.
I was wandering around trying to see him. I just, wore my heart on my sleeve. I was only happy when he was around.
So you had an influence?
Yeah.
Nicki was later relieved of his duties, and Diana then took up her son's riding instructor, James Hewitt, with whom she carried on a 5-year romance. He later described their affair by saying it's a gradual period, and then, suddenly you can't get enough of each other or see each other as much as you want.
As a result of their dalliance, Hewitt was even rumored to be Prince Harry's father, thanks to their shared red hair. But their romance didn't begin until 2 years after the second prince was born, so the theory has since been refuted. Charles and Diana eventually announced their separation, but intended to try and make the marriage work and continue their duties as a royal couple. But just as they'd experienced pressure from above to walk down the aisle, they were also subject to the same forces calling them to officially split. Royal Decree. As a result of their obvious discord and separation announcement, Queen Elizabeth II openly demanded in separate letters to Charles and Diana that the two file for divorce. A statement from the palace explained, after considering the present situation, the Queen wrote to both the Prince and Princess earlier this week and gave them her view, supported by the Duke of Edinburgh, that an early divorce is desirable. Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip will continue to do all they can to help and support the Prince and Princess of Wales, and most particularly their children, in this difficult period. Shortly thereafter, the divorce was finalized, and the rest is history.
It's clear that Prince William inherited plenty of his mother's personal characteristics, but what exactly did Princess Diana leave of her most prized possessions? The details of her will might surprise you. 2 decades after her untimely death, the world still remembers and talks about Princess Diana. During her time as a royal, the late Princess of Wales carried out her duties with dignity and elegance, and as a result, she is still thought of fondly by royal experts and the public alike. But fans of the princess might not realize the incredible fortune she left behind in her will. On top of her graceful demeanor, Diana was an exceptional mother. The mother of Prince William and Prince Harry not only left behind a hefty legacy, but she also helped raise them in becoming dutiful and conscientious men. Though the boys were 15 and 12 years old when Diana tragically died, both William and Harry internalized the relationship they had with their mother and have used her teachings to make the world a better place. William and Harry would ultimately go on to become distinguished servicemen, though the two have gone in separate directions since. Prince Harry officially moved on from full-time royal duties, foregoing royal funding in the process and taking out a mortgage to finance his new California home with wife Meghan Markle. Meanwhile, William is bearing Diana's strengths as a leader back home with Kate Middleton, as the two help lead the royal family into its next phase. But while the elder son clearly inherited many of his mother's attributes, what actual possessions did Princess Diana leave behind for Prince William? According to Reader's Digest, 4 years before her death in 1997, Princess Diana ironed out a will that bequeathed some of her most prized possessions and finances to sons Prince William and Prince Harry. Perhaps one of the largest inheritances William received was a fraction of Diana's net worth. At the time of her death, Diana had an estimated net worth of £21.5 million, which when converted and adjusted for inflation would average out to around $55 million. However, as reported by Forbes, the actual amount may have been just half of the estimated amount after estate tax.
I declare bankruptcy!
But either way you slice it, William surely received millions from his late mother. It has also been reported that Diana set up a discretionary fund which would see William and Harry, their future spouses, their children, and special charities receive £100,000, which equates to roughly $136,000. The discretionary fund essentially acted as a cherry on top of what Diana already provided for her children. Diana also laid out the residuary estate, or the remainder of her earnings, to be given to her children when they turned 25 years old. But that wish ultimately was not honored. According to Reader's Digest, the executors of Diana's trust, being her mother and sister, changed these stipulations so that William and Harry received the residuary estate at age 30 instead, netting William a cool $16 million and Harry $14 million when they reached that age. Not only did the late Princess Diana leave behind a substantial amount of money for Prince William and Prince Harry, but there were also several physical possessions listed in her will as well. One of the most revered possessions Diana handed down to her children was her immaculate wedding dress from when she tied the knot with Prince Charles. Interestingly enough, the dress was 25 feet in length and was the longest wedding dress ever worn in royal history. Diana also bestowed upon her children a plethora of jewelry and other possessions. It's believed that Diana left the jewelry behind as she wanted her son's spouses to eventually wear them. 75% of these possessions went to William and Harry, while the other 25% went to Diana's godchildren. Perhaps the most personal effect of Diana's will, however, was letting her children choose a keepsake of hers for them each to keep. Harry chose his mother's engagement ring, but ultimately gave it to William for his marriage to Kate Middleton. As former butler Paul Burrell recalled in the documentary The Diana Story, Harry said to him, wouldn't it be fitting if she had Mummy's ring? William would also get Diana's Cartier watch, but he reportedly gave it up to Harry for unknown reasons, perhaps as a friendly trade for the iconic engagement ring. Meghan Markle has been spotted wearing the watch on multiple occasions in recent years.
What did Princess Diana leave behind when she suddenly died? Did Prince Harry inherit the same amount of money as his brother? And were any of Diana's possessions left to Prince Harry in his mother's will? On August 31st, 1997, people across the globe were shocked and devastated when it was reported that Princess Diana had died. Popularly known as the People's Princess, Diana left such a massive impact on the world because of her dedication to activism and her humanitarian efforts. She publicly advocated for a plethora of important causes. But aside from her commitment to helping the marginalized, Diana was also known for being a great mother to her two sons, Prince William and Prince Harry. According to People, the princess once said, "I will fight for my children on any level so they can reach their potential as human beings and in their public duties." And true enough, she stood by her word. During his interview with Oprah Winfrey, Prince Harry revealed that it was his mother's financial support that allowed him to step down as a senior member of the royal family. Along with his wife, Meghan Markle, Harry moved to Los Angeles and stopped receiving financial support from the palace. The prince told Oprah,
"I've got what my mum left me, and without that, we would not have been able to do this."
This revelation got people wondering just how much did Princess Diana leave Prince Harry and Prince William in her will. As it turns out, she left each of them enough to live a comfortable life even after her death. Princess Diana's death was so unexpected that many were worried about what was going to happen to Prince Harry and Prince William. Reader's Digest noted that at the time of her death, she had a net worth of roughly £21 million, which equated to $31.5 million at the time. Of course, Princess Diana did not leave her two sons empty-handed. She had drafted up a will 4 years prior to her death, and her estate was distributed to different people, with a huge chunk going to Prince Harry and Prince William. According to CNN, her estate, which was $21.3 million after taxes, was distributed equally between her sons. Since they were teenagers at the time of her death, Diana's sons only began receiving their inheritances upon turning 25. Eventually, they received the full amount once they reached the age of 30.
The Netflix and the Spotify of it all, that was never part of the plan.
According to The Telegraph, the inheritance was also invested following Diana's death, resulting in it gaining significant interest. By the time Prince Harry turned 30, he inherited around £10 million or $13 million. And this money truly came in handy, as Harry revealed during his sit-down interview with Oprah Winfrey. "It's like she saw it coming, and I certainly felt her presence throughout this whole process." On top of granting her sons financial freedom, Princess Diana also left them some of her most prized possessions. Prince Harry and Prince William were given the chance to pick a trinket from their mother's collection, and surprisingly, Harry chose Diana's engagement ring, while William opted for her Cartier watch. If you are wondering why the ring ended up on Kate Middleton's finger and not Meghan Markle's, it's because Harry offered it up to Will when he found out that he was planning to propose. In the documentary The Diana Story, Diana's former butler, Paul Burrell, shared the story of how Harry had given up the ring for his brother. Burrell revealed, "Harry said to him, 'Wouldn't it be fitting if she had Mummy's ring? Then one day that ring will be sat on the throne of England.' Harry gave up his precious treasure, his one thing he kept from his mother he gave to his brother. That's selfless, kind, and exactly who Diana was." As Meghan was later spotted sporting the Cartier watch, it's highly possible that the two did a brotherly exchange of the precious items. Princess Diana also reportedly entrusted her iconic wedding dress to Prince Harry and Prince William, but what they've done with it remains to be seen. Perhaps one of her grandchildren will wear it on their special day someday in the future.
In the days following Prince Philip's death on April 9, 2021, and leading up to his April 17th funeral, much has been made of how the preparations for the late husband of Queen Elizabeth II's funeral procession and ceremony have already deviated from the norm. Specifically, media outlets have focused on two categories: changes made to the Windsor Mountbatten Patriarch's funeral ceremony due to restrictions imposed by the ongoing coronavirus, and changes made to honor Prince Philip's legacy. And as can be expected, people have begun comparing the upcoming ceremony to the most striking and somber royal funeral of the late 20th century, that of Diana, Princess of Wales. Her September 6, 1997 funeral was truly a worldwide event, with live television broadcasts in practically every country. As viewers remember, Princess Diana had a closed casket. What was the reason behind that decision? despite the fact that Princess Diana had divorced Prince Charles a year prior to her death in 1997, which resulted in her technically losing the title of princess. She was still allowed a ceremonial funeral, which is typically reserved for members of the royal family. While the decision to have Diana's coffin be closed might have been influenced by British tradition, another factor might have also been at play: the tragic circumstances surrounding her August 1997 death. Princess Diana's life was cut short after she and her boyfriend, Dodi Fayed, were killed in a car accident in France. She had multiple injuries, and it would have been a difficult task to present her body for an open casket, given the gravity of her condition post-accident. The decision to have Princess Diana's closed coffin sealed by a lead lining also would preserve the body in its tomb. By being essentially airtight, it would make the preservation last longer. An above-ground vault will need certain changes than a traditional in-ground burial, and unwanted smells can emanate from the casket if it is not properly and tightly sealed. A lead-lined coffin can preserve a body for up to a year. Mourners lined the streets of London to pay their respects for the late Princess Diana, and another 2.5 billion watched on TV, per History.com. In 1997, that was almost half the world's population. Many celebrities, fashion designers, and politicians were also in attendance at Diana's funeral. At the funeral, Princess Diana's close personal friend Elton John played his own version of Candle in the Wind, a song from 1973 that was originally written for Marilyn Monroe after she died. It was released as a single after the performance, and the moving tune has sold more than 33 million copies worldwide to date, making it the best-selling chart single of all time. But these aspects weren't the only things that made Princess Diana's funeral unique. Perhaps the most poignant moment involved her father-in-law, Prince Philip, and her young sons, Princes William and Harry. Prince Philip was very concerned about the emotional well-being of his grandsons after their mother died. A former government relations director told the Evening Standard, per Today, "We were all talking about how William and Harry should be involved, and suddenly came Prince Philip's voice. We hadn't heard from him before, but he was really anguished. It's about the boys," he cried. "They've lost their mother." Princess Anne, Queen Elizabeth and Philip's daughter, remembered the moment when Philip offered to walk with the boys in the funeral procession. She recalled in an interview with ITV, "I seem to remember them saying that, in fact, it was a question of, if you'll do it, I'll do it. That was him as a grandfather." Philip famously joined Prince William, then 15, Prince Harry, then 12, Prince Charles, and Princess Diana's brother, Earl Spencer, on the walk from Kensington Palace to Westminster Abbey. William said of the joint family decision to include him and his brother in the processional, per the BBC, "It wasn't an easy decision, and it was a sort of collective family decision to do that. There is that balance between duty and family, and that's what we had to do."
Prince Charles and Princess Diana's royal wedding was watched by as many as 750 million people worldwide. But it soon became clear that the future king and his stunning bride's relationship wasn't as idyllic as it first seemed. Here's why Prince Charles and Diana were doomed from the start. Thanks to The Crown, viewers are well aware of the impact Camilla Parker Bowles had on Prince Charles when the couple first met.
You denied your right to reign alongside the woman that you wanted by your side.
BBC News reported that the couple's meet-cute occurred, quote, at a polo match in Windsor in 1970, though People magazine alleged that the future Duchess of Cornwall met the prince 2 years later at a party. Whichever version of events is true, the magazine revealed, in 1972, the lively blonde with a wicked sense of humour and a passion for riding had captivated the young Charles. However, their fledgling relationship apparently fizzled when Prince Charles returned to duty in the Navy. The outlet reported, although the smitten prince courted her for 6 months, he failed to propose before returning to sea in February 1973. Instead of waiting for the prince to pop the question, the now Duchess moved on. By July 1973, Camilla had married her old boyfriend Andrew Parker Bowles, with whom she had 2 children, daughter Laura and son Tom. Perhaps if Prince Charles hadn't returned to the Navy, things might have turned out very differently. As it was, by the time the prince met Diana, Camilla had already been in his life for several years. Despite Camilla's marriage to Andrew Parker Bowles in 1973 and Prince Charles's wedding to Diana in 1981, the former couple didn't end their friendship. Sure, both had moved on with other people, but Charles and Camilla remained close, which apparently caused problems further down the line. Camilla's enduring friendship with Prince Charles was facilitated by the fact that her then-husband moved in the same social circles as the prince. E! News reported, "The men still played polo together and Charles frequently spent the weekend at their home. In turn, the Parker Bowleses hobnobbed frequently with the royal family, Camilla getting along famously with the Queen over their love of riding and the outdoors." Further integrating himself into the Parker Bowles family, Prince Charles became godfather to their son Tom, who was born in 1974. Camilla and Charles regularly socialized with one another, and as a result, it seemed as though their spark never really died. We can only surmise this wasn't a great omen for Charles and Diana.
If any man can show any just cause why they may not lawfully be joined together, let him now speak.
While staying friends with an ex is one thing, attending their wedding is quite another. But that's exactly what happened when Prince Charles got married. The Prince of Wales wed Princess Diana on July 29, 1981, in front of a worldwide audience, but Camilla was lucky enough to get a seat inside of St Paul's Cathedral in London. In a 1991 interview with biographer Andrew Morton for his book Diana, Her True Story, in her own words, the People's Princess revealed, "I knew she was in there, of course. I looked for her. So walking down the aisle, I spotted Camilla, pale, grey, veiled pillbox hat. Saw it all. Her son Tom standing on a chair. To this day, you know, vivid memory." Along these lines, author Penny Junor suggested in her book The Duchess, Camilla Parker Bowles and the Love Affair That Rocked the Crown, Princess Diana became jealous, obsessing about Camilla Parker Bowles, suspicious, turning against people she appeared to like, convinced they were out to get her. But Good Housekeeping notes that following the ceremony, it was Camilla's then-husband's job to oversee the ceremonial escort that accompanied the couple's carriage ride through London. As such, it seems as though Parker Bowles had more than one reason to attend her ex's wedding, even if not everyone involved was pleased by her invite. During their respective marriages, Prince Charles and Camilla allegedly reignited their physical relationship in 1986, according to People magazine. In a 1995 interview with the BBC, Princess Diana made a shocking revelation when she said, "There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded." The People's Princess also opened up about her husband's alleged affair. Revealing that she'd confronted Camilla about it, she said, "I was terrified of her. I said, I know what's going on between you and Charles, and I just want you to know that." Diana also alleged that Camilla had once told her, "You've got everything you ever wanted. You've got all the men in the world fall in love with you, and you've got 2 beautiful children. What more do you want?" Understandably, the princess responded, quote, "I want my husband." In tapes she recorded for Andrew Morton, Diana detailed how she discovered early on that Prince Charles still had feelings for Camilla. She said, "The first thing that hit me was my future husband sending Camilla flowers when she had meningitis. To Gladys from Fred. I once heard him on the telephone in his bath on his handheld set saying, 'Whatever happens, I will always love you.' I told him afterwards that I had listened at the door and we had a filthy row." The evidence continued to stack up, with Princess Diana explaining, "Somebody in his office told me that my husband had had a bracelet made for her, which she wears to this day. It's a gold chain bracelet with a blue enamel disc. It's got G and F entwined in it. Gladys and Fred." She went to Charles's office and found the bracelet, claiming she made the discovery just 2 weeks before she and Charles got married. Prince Charles first met Diana in 1977 when he attended a grouse hunt at her family's home in Althorp. At the time, the Prince of Wales was courting his future bride's older sister, Lady Sarah, and Diana was just 16 years old. It wasn't until 1980 that the two reconnected. According to Town & Country, they were both invited to stay at a mutual friend's house, and that's when Prince Charles made his move. Princess Diana recalled their reunion in private tapes recorded by her speech coach, Peter Setlin, at Kensington Palace in the early 90s. Per The Times, she noted that Prince Charles was vulnerable at the time and he was mourning the loss of Lord Mountbatten, who was tragically killed by an IRA terrorist in 1979. Diana explained, "I said, you must be so lonely. I said, it's pathetic watching you walking up the aisle with Lord Mountbatten's coffin in front. Ghastly. You need someone beside you. He leapt upon me and started kissing me and everything." Judging by Diana's words, Charles was going through a difficult time in his life and seemingly threw himself into a relationship as a result, which might not have been the best foundation for a long-term romance. In the tapes recorded in the early 90s at Kensington Palace, Diana went into detail about the slightly strange courtship she had with Charles. As reported by ABC News, the tapes were aired as part of a documentary called Diana in Her Own Words, and the princess said of dating the future king, "We met 13 times and we got married." And that's not all. Diana was reportedly unimpressed with the way the prince tried to woo her. She also said on tape, "He wasn't consistent with his courting abilities. He'd ring me every day for a week, then wouldn't speak to me for 3 weeks. Very odd. I thought, fine, well, he knows where I am if he wants me. The thrill when he used to ring up was so immense and intense, it would drive the other 3 girls in my flat crazy."
I'm not very good at being a performing monkey.
The fact that Princess Diana only saw her fiancé on little more than a dozen separate occasions before tying the knot suggests that the couple didn't have much time to get to know one another before making it official. In transcripts of Diana's conversations with Morton, she got candid about exactly when her marriage with Prince Charles started to go wrong. The princess revealed, "Charles and I were very, very close to each other the 6 weeks before Harry was born, the closest we've ever been and ever will be. Then suddenly, as Harry was born, it just went bang, our marriage. The whole thing went down the drain."
Were you a little sad at that moment?
Well, I was.
As for why the birth of their second child had such a detrimental effect on their marriage, Diana had a theory. She claimed Charles wanted 2 children and he wanted a girl.
Were you expecting a boy? Can you tell us that?
No, I mean, it doesn't matter what it was, as long as it was all right.
She also alleged that Prince Charles negatively reacted to Harry's birth, saying, quote, "Oh God, it's a boy, and he's even got red hair." Prince Harry, of course, was born on September 15, 1984, and the world would watch as he grew up, got married and started a family of his own with Meghan Markle.
Boom.
Following Prince Charles's supposed brutal comments after Harry's arrival, Diana admitted that their marriage was never the same. But the future king didn't announce his separation from the princess until 8 years later in 1992. Transcripts of the tapes Diana recorded for Morton contained many revelations that shocked even the most loyal of royal fans. In one such recording, the princess claimed that Prince Charles wasn't always kind about her appearance. Diana alleged, "My husband put his hand on my waistline and said, 'Oh, a bit chubby here, aren't we?' And that triggered off something in me. And the Camilla thing, I was desperate. According to Diana, her then-husband's alleged comments contributed to her insecurities and consequent struggle with bulimia. She said, "I remember the first time I made myself sick. I was so thrilled because I thought this was the release of tension. The first time I was measured for my wedding dress, I was 29 inches around the waist. The day I got married, I was 23.5 inches. I had shrunk into nothing from February to July 1981. Diana also revealed that as her condition worsened, by that October, she even attempted to take her own life during a serious bout with depression. She said, "I got terribly thin. People started commenting, 'Your bones are showing.' Finally, she thankfully sought medical help as she says she was, quote, 'in such a bad way.' And it turns out her wellness legacy continues to live on through her family and the Heads Together campaign.
Mental health is just as important as physical health.
One of Prince Charles and Diana's most memorable moments happened when a reporter asked the couple if they were, quote, 'in love' during their engagement interview. While the princess quickly said that they were, her soon-to-be husband had a different point of view.
And I suppose in love.
Of course.
Whatever in love means. Well, it obviously put your own interpretation.
At the time, Princess Diana appeared slightly tripped up by her then-fiancé's weird comment about their romance. But in candid tapes recorded by Peter Settlin, she reflected on the awkward joint interview, revealing, "Charles's answer threw me completely. I thought, what a strange answer. God, it traumatized me." Still, journalist Andrew Morton told Anne Curry that for Charles, love was probably never the goal.
Prince Charles was not looking for love. He was looking for someone who can share the burdens and duties of a future princess and a possible future queen.
It seems that even when they announced their engagement, this doomed couple wasn't even on the same page. Perhaps one of the biggest signs that Prince Charles's marriage to Diana wasn't fated to last was the fact that they had very different hobbies and interests from one another. According to royal biographer Penny Junor's 2005 book, The Firm, The Troubled Life of the House of Windsor, when they first started dating, the future princess allegedly seemed to enjoy many of the things Prince Charles loved, such as hunting and spending time outdoors. Junor wrote, "Imagine his surprise, therefore, when after their engagement she seemed suddenly to hate everything he had thought she loved." Prince Charles was quite at loss to understand the change in Diana and thought it must be his fault in some way, that the prospect of marrying him was all too ghastly. The prince allegedly spoke to no one about his feelings and ignored the advice of close friends. After such a public engagement announcement, Junor explained, "Pulling out would have been unimaginable. The humiliation, the hurt, the headlines, the castigation." Unfortunately, it looks as though even Prince Charles and Princess Diana realised they may have been mismatched from the start.
Princess Diana has long been a subject of public intrigue, but even more people are familiarizing themselves with her controversial life thanks to Netflix's The Crown. The hit series was first released in 2016 and has visually represented each stage of Queen Elizabeth II's reign to date, with Season 4 focusing on Princess Diana's relationship with Prince Charles. Season 4 showed the early days of the couple's supposedly unhappy marriage, as Princess Diana, played by Emma Corrin, discovered that Prince Charles's affinity for Camilla Parker Bowles was far from platonic. Diana's growing despondence then led to multiple alleged affairs, something she was unable to hide from the royal family. In one scene during The Crown, Princess Anne jokes with the Queen about Diana's extramarital relationships, including one with her bodyguard, surprisingly.
Diana's been with her bodyguard, her riding instructor.
Corrin, who starred as Princess Diana, spoke with talk show host Tamron Hall in November 2020.
The series that we're in is fictionalized to a great extent. Obviously, it has its roots in reality.
Despite being a throwaway line in The Crown, Diana's bodyguard was, in fact, a much bigger part of her life than the show may have led viewers to believe. According to private voice tapes featuring the late princess, she reportedly even considered running off with him at one point. It's no surprise Princess Diana had plenty of admirers, but perhaps her most controversial was her bodyguard, who happened to be the first man she was romantically linked to after Prince Charles. In private tapes recorded in 1992 with Diana's voice coach Peter Settlin and released after her death, the princess reportedly revealed that her greatest love was her bodyguard. Diana not only expressed being, quote, deeply in love with the man, but is also recorded as saying, "I'd be quite happy to give all this up and to just go off and live with him." While she didn't name him, the mystery man is believed to have been Barry Manicky, a former police officer for the Royal Protection Squad. Back in April 1985, the father of two was assigned to guard Diana as marital tensions escalated between her and Prince Charles. While Manicky's responsibilities included protecting her from unwanted attention or physical harm and accompanying her on trips, his personal affections for the people's princess seemed to go beyond his professional obligations. According to royal expert Tina Brown, Princess Diana and Manicky forged a close relationship during a fishing accident at Balmoral Castle in Scotland. Brown writes in the Diana Chronicles that after Diana injured herself with a salmon hook, it was Manicky who drove the car, Manicky, not her husband, who consoled her. From then on, Diana's bodyguard allegedly continued to support her emotionally, and the pair even publicly flirted with one another, which apparently didn't sit well with royal staffers. Princess Diana never revealed whether her and Barry Manicky's relationship was physical, but one instance suggests that it was. Royal expert Brown wrote that after the pair was caught in a so-called compromising position in 1986, Manicky was fired, while royal staffers like Manicky's successor as bodyguard, Ken Worf, have said he was simply a friend to the princess. Others disagree and have claimed that there was something more going on between them. Likewise, cavalry officer James Hewitt, who Diana also had an affair with, reportedly claimed that the princess had told him that Manicky was her lover, per Oprah Daily. But as people within the palace, Prince Charles included, caught on to Manicky and Diana's growing intimacy and apparently over-familiar behavior, the 38-year-old was transferred to the Diplomatic Protection Squad, per The Sun. Although, according to Diana's tapes, Manicky was unceremoniously fired from his position. 9 months after leaving his job as Princess Diana's bodyguard, Manicky was killed in a motorbike accident. While making an appearance at the Cannes Film Festival in 1987, Diana said she experienced the, quote, biggest blow of her life. She was told her former bodyguard had died instantly following a collision. Despite being dubbed a tragedy, some believed Manickey's motorbike was tampered with due to his royal romance with the princess. Diana herself was even suspicious and said, "It was all found out and he was chucked out. Then he was killed. I think he was bumped off." Nevertheless, Manickey's death was reinvestigated during the inquiry into Diana's death and was ruled a tragic accident.
Princess Diana died on August 31st, 1997, in a car crash in Paris, France. While the shockwaves of the tragedy are still felt today, there are many who think the crash was anything but an accident, even though it was officially ruled as such. Most investigations concur that Diana's unlawful death was caused by the haphazard driving of her chauffeur, Henri Paul, deemed inebriated at the time, and the hot pursuit of the paparazzi right on the tail of Diana's limo. Conspiracy theories prevailed decades later, however, that more intentional and nefarious forces may have been at play that night. Per USA Today, popular persisting theories include that the intercultural nature of Diana's romance with her Egyptian boyfriend, Dodi Fayed, who died in the same crash, doomed their relationship from the beginning. Unbeknownst to them, the chauffeur Paul was an MI6 agent, and that Prince Philip specifically had a hand in orchestrating Diana's death. However, the last rumor was ruled out by a British coroner in 1998, leading Lord Justice Scott Baker to divert the attention of an 11-member jury back to the paparazzi chase and Paul's vehicular recklessness. Baker said back then, "There is no evidence that the Duke of Edinburgh ordered Diana's execution, and there is no evidence that the Secret Intelligence Service or any other government agency organized it." Given widespread acceptance that the paparazzi and Paul were at fault, why are conspiracy theories surrounding Diana's death still going strong to this day? The main reason that conspiracy rumors surrounding Princess Diana's fatal car crash in 1997 just won't dissipate seemingly all point back to Mohammed Al-Fayed. Mohammed, an Egyptian businessman, was the father of Diana's boyfriend Dodi, and the person who launched a private investigation into the crash. According to The Independent, such was Mohammed's persistence that London's Metropolitan Police were compelled to launch their own probe, Operation Paget, to investigate whether there was any truth behind the theories he'd proposed.
They been murdered. Dodi and Diana been murdered, definitely.
As Martin Gregory, author of Diana, The Last Days, explained in the TLC documentary, Princess Diana, Tragedy or Treason, Mohammed believed Dodi was about to propose to Diana the night of the crash. As Gregory detailed, Dodi allegedly checked out a series of engagement rings called Tell Me Yes. According to the biographer, he didn't buy one of the rings, but he did order a ring for Diana. As Reader's Digest reported, Mohammed allegedly claimed the royal family did not want Prince William, the future King of England, to have a Muslim stepfather. However, Operation Paget found that Dodi never purchased an engagement ring. Also false, as discovered through blood testing, was Mohammed's claim that Diana was pregnant, with Mohammed suggesting that this served as further possible motivation for the crown to frown upon the relationship. Per The Independent, Operation Paget lasted years, cost millions of pounds, and found that the theories were entirely without foundation. Alleging that the British royals had an insidious hand in Princess Diana's tragic death due to religious and cultural prejudice is one thing, but the much wilder conspiracy theory still gripping some people's imagination is that Henri Paul, the chauffeur driving the car she died in, was actually an informant for MI6. The source of this theory is none other than former MI6 officer Richard Tomlinson. According to USA Today, Tomlinson told reporters at the time, Henri Paul, who was the driver of the car, was also the security manager at the Ritz Hotel, and he was an MI6 informant. I saw his file. It's been well established that he went missing for 2 or 3 hours the night of his death. Tomlinson said to simply follow the money. Per USA Today, Paul had a take-home pay of $35,000 a year, and yet he had almost $250,000 in his bank account at the time of his death, as well as a significant amount in cash on his person when he died, which Tomlinson notes was possibly MI6's payment to him. Tomlinson told a French judge back in 1998, "I am certain that this money originated from MI6. This is speculation on my part, but if he was an MI6 informant, it would be quite normal for him to receive money." It sounds like this is one spy game that will forever be a guessing game, too. One sent shockwaves across the world, and the other came with great reverence. Two beloved figures had very different funerals. After Princess Diana died, Queen Elizabeth II stayed in Balmoral with her grandsons, Princes William and Harry. King Charles III was there too with his sons, and the extended family was in Scotland at Balmoral on holiday when they found out that Diana died following a car crash in the Alma Tunnel in Paris.
The world is in shock. Diana, Princess of Wales, is dead, and Britain is in mourning.
As Britain and the whole world began grieving for the loss of Diana, public opinion quickly grew resentful toward the royal family for not returning to London. The Queen did eventually return to London a day before she planned to greet mourners and look at the public displays in honor of Diana. As the years have passed, public opinion has warmed toward the Queen on this topic. Yes, she wasn't in London, but she wasn't there because she was taking care of the two people who most needed a mother figure at that moment: William and Harry. It was one of the rare moments when the Queen chose her family first, and time has proven that she was right to do so. Unlike the contention preceding Princess Diana's death, Queen Elizabeth II's death was met with a wave of gratitude from people all around the world. Britain went into 10 days of mourning, with lineups lasting 24 hours to pay respects at Westminster Hall, where she was lying in state. In fact, the lineup was so long that a later publication by The Times mentioned several people being treated by ambulance for dehydration and fatigue. In preparation for the Queen's funeral on September 19, 2022, people from all over the world brought tents and sleeping bags to settle in on the London sidewalks to get prime viewing.
She reigned for over 70 years, and she's a very happy person.
While the tone was, of course, somber and respectful, the crowd also bore witness to the stability that Elizabeth brought to the nation. After a moment of silence on the night before the Queen's funeral, the crowd erupted into applause and cheering. While Princess Diana's death was a shock, she died at only 36 after all. The Queen's passing was a solemn time, but one of awe for what her life meant, for what she gave to her country. At Princess Diana's funeral, the sight of Princes William and Harry walking behind her coffin was so tragic that the world has never forgotten it. William, just 15, and Harry, 12, had to be persuaded to walk in the procession to Westminster Abbey, and it was grandfather Prince Philip who said to them, "I'll walk if you walk." King Charles III also walked with his sons, as did Diana's brother, the Earl of Spencer. In addition to seeing her sons walk behind her coffin, fans also saw the letter on top of it, tucked into a floral arrangement, with the word "Mummy" written on the envelope. Reportedly, it was William who wrote the note. Diana's sons have since spoken about the experience of walking behind their mother at such a young age in front of the entire world. Previously, Harry said a child should never have been asked to do such a thing. However, as the years passed, Harry softened on his reaction and said later that he was glad to have mourned his mother in that way. William has also spoken about the experience. In the documentary Diana, 7 Days, he said it was easily one of the hardest things he's had to do and explained how his long hair helped shield him, adding, "I felt if I looked at the floor and my hair came down over my face, no one could see me." Time caused a rift between brothers Princes William and Harry. As reports claim, the breach began when Harry started falling for Meghan Markle. Us Weekly notes that William was worried that Harry was getting involved a little too quickly. After Harry and Meghan got married, news broke in 2019 that William and his wife Kate Middleton were splitting their charities from those of the joint foundation they were sharing. We know the rest of the story. Harry and Meghan didn't join the royal family for Christmas in 2019, and in early 2020, the couple announced that they were stepping down as senior royals. What came next? The bombshell interview with Oprah Winfrey. It makes sense that there's been tension.
I myself was trapped as well.
But the passing of Queen Elizabeth II has proven to be a renewal for the brothers. Harry and Meghan returned to England, and the world blushed in awkwardness. However, the visit went well. The foursome greeted crowds together outside of Windsor Castle and were present together for other moments in the following days. It wasn't hugs and kisses all around, but it could be the start of something. Princess Diana's brother, Charles Spencer, also known as Earl Spencer, pulled no punches when he spoke at his sister's funeral. He told the mourners in Westminster Abbey that the world was in shock. Spencer first went after the media, since Diana was fleeing photographers at the time of her death, saying, "There is no doubt that she was looking for a new direction in her life at this time. She talked endlessly of getting away from England, mainly because of the treatment that she received at the hands of the newspapers."
I don't think she ever understood why her genuinely good intentions were sneered at by the media.
Then Spencer went after the royal family, saying, "And beyond that, on behalf of your mother and sisters, I pledge that we, your blood family, will do all we can to continue the imaginative way in which you are steering these two exceptional young men, so that their souls are not simply immersed by duty and tradition, but can sing openly as you planned." While the eulogy was intense, Queen Elizabeth II herself honored Diana in an address. The Queen said that she was in shock and disbelief at what had happened.
"I admired and respected her for her energy and commitment to others."
Princess Diana's funeral brought a star-studded crowd to Westminster Abbey. Spokesperson for Buckingham Palace at the time, Malcolm Ross, told the Washington Post in 1997, "The church will be full. We have been swamped with calls from people who want to come." While 2,000 invitations might seem like a lot, the Abbey filled up quickly, the attendees ranging from Hollywood A-listers to politicians. Nicole Kidman, Tom Cruise, and Tom Hanks attended, as did director Steven Spielberg. But most prominent of all was Diana's longtime friend, Sir Elton John. The musician not only attended, but also performed an altered version of his song, Candle in the Wind. There were some political figures, like Hillary Rodham Clinton and Queen Noor of Jordan. Bernadette Chirac also attended. The wife of French President Jacques Chirac represented the country where Diana died. In a rather different tone than Princess Diana's funeral, Queen Elizabeth II's funeral was packed with world leaders and political figures.
Nearly 100 presidents and heads of government are expected to attend the Queen's funeral.
Monarchs around the world came, including Queen Margrethe II of Denmark, King Harald V of Norway, King Felipe VI of Spain, among others, and even the Emperor and Empress of Japan were in attendance. Queen Rania of Jordan came, as did King Sultan Abdullah Sultan Ahmad Shah of Malaysia. Polish President Andrzej Duda came with his wife Agata, as did President Joe Biden of the United States, accompanied by his wife Jill Biden. Rwanda's President Paul Kagame came, as did Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. There have not been so many world leaders gathered in one palace in decades, The Hollywood Reporter notes, and 500 of the 2,000 seats were given to political figures. There were so many foreign dignitaries and world leaders that the Queen's funeral became a security problem. London's mayor, Sadiq Khan, told the outlet, "It's been decades since this many world leaders were in one place. This is unprecedented," in relation to the various things that we're juggling. The greatest emotional difference between Princess Diana and Queen Elizabeth II's funerals was the shock factor. Diana died at 36 in a tragic accident. Queen Elizabeth died at 96 after celebrating the longest reign as monarch in England's history, 70 years. Elizabeth's presence was one of stability and tradition. She once said, "If you live this sort of life, which people don't very much, you live very much by tradition and by continuity." I find that's one of the sad things, that people don't take on jobs for life. They try different things all the time. She joked about the predictability of her life, saying, "You know exactly what you'll be doing 2 months hence." The average life expectancy for a citizen of the United Kingdom in 2022 is 82 years, according to Macro Trends. The Queen vastly outlived this. Nevertheless, her death marked the end of an era and is a sorrowful thing, leaving behind her grieving children, grandchildren, extended family, and a nation. For Diana, however, her death came as a shock. She died on foreign soil, adding a feeling of distance. Her ex-husband, then Prince Charles, flew to Paris to bring Diana's body back to England. Following her death, French police began an investigation as to what happened to cause her car to crash, which also killed her partner, Dodi Fayed, their chauffeur, and later Diana, adding an element of suspicion and tragedy. Princess Diana was buried at her family home, Althorpe Estate in West Northamptonshire, England. Initially, Diana was to be buried at a church in the Spencer Vault, but her brother, Earl Spencer, chose instead to lay his sister to rest on a small island in the middle of a lake called the Oval on their property. As Time notes, there is an urn on the island, but no other markings of a gravesite. For a few months each year, tourists are permitted to visit the estate, but they may not set foot on the island. Indeed, privacy around Diana's resting place became a key point for her brother. When her remains were brought to Althorpe, Spencer insisted on a private ceremony and even arranged to have a no-fly zone temporarily put in place over their property so that no press could document the event in any way. Spencer's commitment to privacy over Diana's burial place came in direct response to how much the press plagued her in life.
Now, when I go out of my door, my front door, I'm being photographed. I never know where a lens is going to be.
Meanwhile, Queen Elizabeth II was also buried in private at the King George VI Memorial Chapel at Windsor, next to her late husband, Prince Philip, and other members of her family. Her former press secretary, Samantha Cohen, told People Windsor was her home, and she loved being there. May both the Queen and Princess rest in peace.